Ever spin up one of those cloud instances and just completely forget about it for like way too long?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me too. Turns out those little slip-ups, they can really add up, you know?
For sure.
And that's where I guess this whole world of FinOps comes in, especially for engineers, like, well, probably a lot of our listeners.
It's true. And we're talking about like way more than just saving a few bucks here and there.
Right.
FinOps is about like changing the entire way engineers think about building software in the cloud, like baking cost efficiency right into the process from the start.
Okay, so we've got a ton of material here about the engineering persona
Mm,
in FinOps.
right.
Honestly, before we really dug into all this, it all sounded, I don't know, a little bit like corporate jargon to me.
Yeah.
But now I'm kind of intrigued. Like, what's the deal with this whole persona thing?
Okay, so think of it this way. In the past, engineers, they were often just kind of handed a budget and told, all right, go build the best thing possible, go wild.
Yeah.
Cloud computing, it kind of changed the game. It's
Mm.
it's more like having, one of those open tabs at a restaurant, endless possibilities.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
But then the bill arrives at the end of the month.
Okay, now you're speaking my language.
Yeah.
We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
You order one more appetizer because it looks too good to resist, and next thing you know, you're paying like twice as much as you planned. So is FinOps like having like a food budget for the cloud or something?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. It gives engineers, the tools, the insights they need to make smarter choices throughout like the entire development process. And it's not just about like saying no to cool features. It's
Correct.
about really understanding what those cost implications are for every decision you make. And then you can find that, that sweet spot, that balance between innovation and efficiency.
That makes a lot of sense. But realistically, I mean, most engineers I know, they're already swamped. So I imagine adding something like cloud cost optimization to their like never-ending to-do list might just feel like another burden.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very valid concern.
Yeah. And even like our listeners, yeah, they even highlighted this as a concern in their initial feedback to us about this topic.
Right, right. And it makes sense. Engineers are constantly under pressure to deliver. And the last thing they need is like another layer of complexity. That's why, I think a key part of FinOps is about empowering, not burdening, engineering teams.
Okay, so how does FinOps actually help engineers rather than just adding, another task to their plate?
One major way is it provides this clear visibility into cloud spending. Like, remember that whole open tab thing we were talking about?
Yeah.
Imagine not actually knowing how much each dish cost until you got that final bill.
Ouch, yeah.
FinOps is like having an itemized breakdown in real time,
Nice.
showing you exactly which team, which project, even which specific service is using, which resources.
See, that to me would be a game changer because I'll be honest, I've definitely scratched my head looking at a cloud bill before, trying to decipher what on earth I spent all that money on.
Exact. That's what I'm saying. With FinOps, you're not left in the dark. You have the information at your fingertips to see, okay, where are costs? Maybe spiraling out of control a little bit. And then you can actually make adjustments before they become, major headaches. And this transparency, it's not just for managing budgets, right? It's also for fostering that sense of ownership and accountability within the engineering teams.
Right, because if you have no idea what's causing the overspending in the first place, it's so easy to just fall into that blame game,
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, one of the challenges our listeners specifically pointed out was this whole who's using what dilemma. It kind of sounds like trying to untangle a giant knot of Christmas lights, honestly.
It can feel that way, without the right systems in place.
Right.
But you're totally right. Figuring out who's using what, I mean, that's a huge pain point, for a lot of teams.
Yeah.
And that's where FinOps steps in to be like the referee, right?
Okay.
Not with a whistle, but, with that data.
Right.
Think of it as like tagging those Christmas lights, right?
Oh, yeah.
So with FinOps, you can actually see, okay, this team's project, it's plugged into this outlet, so to speak.
So instead of like everyone just pointing fingers when that cloud bill arrives,
Exactly.
teams can actually see like, okay, this is our usage, this is our impact.
Right.
I bet that changes like the conversation completely.
It does. It totally does. It shifts that whole focus from blame to like, okay, how do we solve this together?
I like that. Collaboration.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of collaboration, one of the, I think, most interesting things about FinOps is how it incentivizes engineers to be more, well, cost conscious.
Okay, incentives. Now we're talking. Everyone loves a good reward system. What does that actually look like in practice, though?
It's not, just about like handing out bonuses for saving money. Although, I mean, that can be part of it, right?
Right.
It's more about, I think, aligning incentives with like the bigger engineering goals.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say a team, they develop some new feature, users love it, it's a hit.
Okay.
But it also, might drive up those cloud costs, right? With FinOps, they can actually track, okay, how much revenue did this feature generate compared to its, infrastructure expenses.
So it's like saying, hey, this new feature, it brought in, say, X amount of revenue, but it also cost us Y amount in cloud resources.
Exactly.
It's like putting those concrete numbers on the value of their work.
Yeah. And that kind of data, it can be really powerful.
Right.
Because if a team sees, wow, this particular service, it's eating up a huge chunk of the budget,
Right.
they can then explore, okay, what are some more cost-effective alternatives that aren't going to sacrifice performance?
Mm.
And then when they actually, make that change and it saves money, their success it's visible to everyone.
It's about giving engineers the information and then the motivation to make smart choices.
Yes.
Not just from a technical side, but also from that financial side of things. Speaking of smart choices, our material here dives into some specific metrics that are, I guess, crucial for engineers in this whole FinOps world.
For sure. I'll admit some of this stuff can seem a little, intimidating at first glance.
I hear you. It's kind of like, learning a new language almost.
Right.
But like with any new language, once you grasp those basic vocabulary words, it starts to make a lot more sense.
Okay.
So take something like revenue by infrastructure costs, for example. Sounds complicated, but what it's really getting at is, what's your return on investment for your cloud spend?
Okay, so it's like saying, for every dollar I spend on cloud services, how much actual revenue am I generating?
You got it.
And that metric, it's so valuable for engineers, because it helps you prioritize your efforts. If you can show that, hey, this particular project or this feature, it's got a high revenue to cost ratio.
Right.
You're in a much stronger position to go to those stakeholders and say, hey, we need more resources for this.
That makes a lot of sense. Because then it's not just you saying, oh, I think this would be cool to work on. It's like you have the data to back it up.
Right, exactly.
I'm starting to see how this whole FinOps thing, it's not, just about crunching numbers in a spreadsheet.
It's not just about the numbers.
It's about giving engineers, I don't know, it's like giving them a seat at the table, right?
Absolutely.
And empowering them to make those strategic decisions.
Right.
That really impact the entire business.
Exactly. And it's not just about those big picture decisions either.
Right.
FinOps can help engineers make, even those smaller day-to-day smarter choices.
Okay.
So take a metric like cost per deployed service. It sounds, I don't know, pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
But it can be a game changer when you're trying to optimize that cloud usage.
Okay, break it down for me. Cost per deployed service. What is that?
Think of it this way. Every time you deploy a new service to the cloud,
okay,
you're basically adding another line item to your bill, right?
Okay.
It's like ordering a la carte at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Those individual costs, they might seem small at first,
right,
but they add up quick.
They do.
Especially as your application scales.
Right.
Cost per deployed service is about understanding, okay, how much is each of those individual services actually costing me?
So instead of just looking at the overall cloud bill, it's like you're breaking it down to see okay, which services are the big spenders here.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really eye-opening because you might find out that a service you thought was, relatively inexpensive is actually costing you a fortune because of, how you're using it.
Interesting.
Or, maybe you'll realize there's a more cost-effective alternative that'll do the job just as well.
So it's about making those small incremental optimizations that end up having this big impact on that on that overall cloud spending. It's like when, airlines, they tack on all those hidden fees to your ticket price,
Yes.
They seem insignificant at first, but then by the end you're like, what is going on here?
Exactly. And the best part is with the right FinOps tools,
Yeah.
a lot of that data collection and analysis can be automated.
Okay, nice.
So you don't have to, do it all manually. You can focus on what you do best.
Right.
Building amazing software.
All of this sounds great in theory, but let's get real for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about like the importance of visibility, accountability, but how do you actually enforce that stuff in practice?
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine some teams might, drag their feet a little bit when it comes to like actually tracking their usage.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
like, making changes to how they work.
That's where showback and chargeback come in. It might sound kind of intimidating,
Okay.
but it's really just about fairness and transparency when it comes to, who's paying for what.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Demystify showback and chargeback for me.
Okay, so remember our Christmas lights analogy?
Yeah.
Let's say you've got multiple roommates, right?
Okay.
You're all sharing one electricity bill.
Right.
Showback would be like, leaving a note on the fridge being like, hey, here's how much electricity everyone used this month.
Right.
It's about raising awareness, encouraging people to be mindful.
Right.
Chargeback takes it a step further. That's like, we are dividing this electricity bill based on how much you actually used.
Okay.
So if you're the one leaving the lights on all the time,
Yeah.
you're going to end up paying more.
Ah, okay. So showback is like awareness.
Right.
And chargeback is like putting some skin in the game.
Exactly. Now, in the context of FinOps, showback is all about providing those teams with like a clear breakdown of their cloud costs.
Okay.
So this could be like generating reports showing how much each team's spending on different services.
Right.
Or, it could be as simple as setting up like a dashboard.
Okay.
So everyone can see their usage in real time.
So it's kind of like having like a digital scoreboard.
Yeah.
Where everyone can see how they're doing. A little healthy competition never hurt.
Right. Exactly. That's the whole idea behind showback, to create that culture of transparency where everyone's aware of their usage, and its impact.
And then chargeback. That's where things get a little more intense. Chargeback can definitely, raise the stakes a bit when we're talking about cloud costs and everything.
Yeah, you could say that. It's not like, about punishing teams or anything. It's really about creating that direct connection between, your usage and then that budget responsibility.
So instead of having like one big centralized cloud budget that everyone's just kind of, dipping into,
Right.
Each team like gets their own slice of the pie, so to speak, and then they're responsible for managing that spending themselves.
That's the general idea. It can be implemented in like, all sorts of different ways. Depends on the company.
Right.
Some places do, like full chargeback, where teams are like literally getting billed for their usage.
Wow.
Others, they might take a more, symbolic approach,
Okay.
like adjusting team budgets based on how much they used.
I bet that approach really makes people think twice before, spinning up that extra large instance just in case.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
When teams are, directly accountable for those costs, it incentivizes them to be, as efficient as possible, optimize their usage.
Makes sense.
And make those, smarter decisions right from the get-go.
It's amazing to me how FinOps kind of like touches on like so many different aspects of software development.
Right.
It's not like, just about cutting costs. It's about like changing the culture.
Exactly.
Fostering collaboration.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that in this world of cloud computing,
Right.
Technology and finance, they're really just two sides of the same coin,
And the engineers who can like, embrace that mindset, who can bridge that gap between, innovation but also efficiency.
Yeah.
Those are the ones who are going to like thrive in this new era of software development.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, individual success either, right? When entire engineering teams embrace FinOps, that can have this like ripple effect throughout the whole organization.
Wow, yeah.
Leading to more informed decision making, better resource allocation,
Right.
and ultimately, like a healthier bottom line for everybody.
It's like they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. Or in this case, a well-managed cloud, lifts all profits.
I like that. I might have to borrow that one.
Feel free. So for any of our listeners out there who are maybe thinking, okay, this FinOps thing, it sounds pretty interesting, but like, where do I even begin? What advice would you give them?
I would say start by just asking questions.
Yeah.
Talk to your team, talk to your manager, even talk to the finance department.
Right.
See how your organization is currently managing those cloud costs. And then, just explore like what opportunities might there be, to improve things.
Great advice. Don't be afraid to be that person who's like, hey, what's our cost per deployed service look like?
Exactly.
Right. You never know. You might be surprised by the answers you get,
Yeah.
and then the positive changes that you can help spark.
I couldn't agree more.
Right.
It's a journey, not a destination, right?
Yeah.
The most important thing is just getting started.
Well said. This has been a really incredible deep dive, I think, into this world of FinOps, the engineering persona. I feel like I've definitely gained a whole new perspective on this intersection of technology and finance.
Me too, me too.
Yeah.
It's always fun to kind of explore these topics and see how they're shaping, the future of how we build software.
And for all our listeners out there, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
How are you seeing FinOps play out in your own work?
Right. What are your challenges?
Yeah, what successes have you encountered?
What's risking?
Share your thoughts down in the comments below, and until next time,
Keep exploring.
keep exploring, keep innovating, and keep diving deep.